Hello everybody! It is just a beautiful time because we've got two of our favourite players showcasing their Dawn of War 2 skills for us right now. We've got Pax, also known as Zavagel, also known as Zev, I'm going to be calling him Zev, playing his Plague Champion here. And we've got Feg, always in our games recently it seems, playing as the Ravener Alpha. We've had a lot of Ravener Alpha, haven't we? We've had a lot of Tyranids, actually. I've been kind of surprised. Tyranids, if you did not know, are by far the least popular faction in Dawn of War 2 in terms of player base. Nobody bloody plays them, but they're appearing in a lot of our replays at the moment. So, pretty typical builds from both the sides so far. The double Heretic lead for the Plague Champion and the double Termagant into Spore Mine lead for the Ravener Alpha. Now Ravener Alpha not in a great position here, getting shot by bolters. That's going to hurt his little slimy little body. Needs to get himself into some cover. Heretic's going to engage the Hormagaunts here. That's not going to be a good fight for them. The Hormagaunts, if they engage the Heretics, will pretty handily beat them. Kind of messing around right now trying to get melee, but yeah, you see when all the Hormagaunts are actually stuck into melee, they do amazingly. So a couple of Hormagaunts lost and all those Heretics are dead. Look at how much XP the Hormagaunts had. Terrible engagement for Zev, he shouldn't have took that.
Your forces obey you.
This is the purpose of default Heretics. Just worshipping, healing, flanking, getting into melee with the Termagants. They'll beat them. But yeah, nice little engagement there from Feg. Getting the flank with the Spore Mines, forces off these two units. Those CSM are going to be in base healing for a while. Bit awkward really though with the Plague Champion here in the green cover. Yeah, definitely should melee that Plague Champion because the Plague Champion's melee DPS is really pitiful. I mean, it's one of the worst in the game. I think it might actually be the worst. And maybe the Mech Boys equally bad. Either way, look, it does the job. So he's delaying for quite a lot of time. They really do have to do this because they can't afford to have him shooting at them with the Plague Bolt, so that will do a lot of damage. Like Termagants will be dropping from that. Really good use of the Spore Mines though. Gotta love how they instantly forced off the two forces trying to assist the Plague Champion there. Ravener finally gets back out into the field. He must have been forced off earlier on. And the Heretics actually came back and forced off the Hormagaunts here, I guess because the Hormagaunts were still weak from the prior engagement. But now the Heretics actually have their aspiring champion, they're not going to have that same problem fighting Hormagaunts in the future. They will kick their fucking ass, the aspiring champion. Which they see double aspiring champions at this point. Now the counterplay to that naturally would be to get some Bow Stranglers on your Warrior Brood. We might see that eventually. As of right now, we've just got some default melee warriors. I mean, they'll do fine. You know, the knockback and the tankiness is always helpful. For now, they're providing their Synapse boost to all the nearby Termagants, giving them effective 20% extra damage resistance. And this is just a really nice little engagement from Feg. We're actually going to see a Hive node get dropped down. Wow, you do not see these very often. You also don't see the Plague Sword very often for the Plague Champion. Really unique weapon, this Plague Sword. So on paper, you just look at it, 50 power melee DPS melee weapon, pretty standard. But the really cool thing about it is the way that it inflicts its damage, it's an on-hit modifier. So the actual weapon itself basically does no damage. But when you hit the enemy with the Plague Sword, they then take 50 DPS worth of damage. So what does that mean in reality? Well, in plain simple English, what that means is that it ignores melee resist. Because the melee resist doesn't protect them from the damage over time, or the on-hit effect. So the Plague Sword's the only weapon in the game that has that ability. So it does extremely high amounts of damage to melee units in particular. And then it's power melee as well, so these warriors, they need to fear that thing. And you can see here the warriors, even the warriors, never mind the Hormagaunts, even the warriors get wrecked by the aspiring champion Heretics. We're doing a bit of a sneaky gen bash down at the other side while Feg dedicated most of his resources to trying to get this gen farm.
Your forces obey you.
Omegot's pretty lucky to get away there, actually. Only one model escaping with... Well, it'll be in less than 17 HP when they start their retreat. Ivanode doing what it can to stall, but eventually it is taken out by the melee. Ivanode's mostly good against ranged blobs. Bit too much melee here, really, with the Plague Champion and the Heretics. Termagants are getting out of the hole. Yeah, that was very questionable.
Your units fulfill your command.
Termagants on their own really not going to be able to contest much of the forces here. But it's okay, they go back into their tunnels.
You are losing us a victory point.
And once again, the Tyrannid blob emerges in a blob and pushes on these poor CSM, which are already pretty fragile in terms of HP. Ravana Alpha doing what he can to capture that western part of the map. Whilst all this action happens on the east. Touch of Nurgle drop down onto the Heretics here. Cataclysm using the Homogods. Ooh, this is risky business. Not ideal. All the knockback coming in there from the Touch of Nurgle, and the Plague Champion has actually got into melee with the Termagants. Now this is the other unique effect of that Plague Sword. Every time he kills a model in melee with that Plague Sword, it summons a little zombie which fights for the Plague Champion. So it just outputs even more DPS, which then means that you get more injured units, and then you can kill them even easier, and it just snowballs from there.
Call now upon the unholy power of the Chaos God.
But as usual with Zev, he's gone for an extremely light tier 1 here. He's just got 1 war gear, he hasn't even got Eternal War, 2 Aspiring Champion Heretics, and the consequence of that is that he's only got 35 pop, and so his wreck income is really quite insane. You know, he's only just caught this requisition point. He's only got 1 matured wreck point. It's at plus 291 requisition, whereas the Tyrannids are at 265. And Tyrannids are known to have a pretty good wreck economy, because all their gaunts are super low in pop. They're on 8 pop. Okay, we see a Barb Strangler coming out now. Seems strange to get it so late, to be honest. I probably wouldn't have bothered. Unless the intention was to always get 4x Swarm Barb Strangler Warriors in tier 2, but... yeah, I don't know, I'd have probably just waited and seen what Zev went for in tier 2. You know, possibly gone for Adrenal Glands and Gene Stealers, if he wants to do some sort of Gene Stealer play. Sorry, if he wants to do some sort of Bloodletter play. Nice flank here on the forces of Feg. Plague Champion coming in from one angle and Heretics at the other side. Aspiring Champion Heretics at the top should be able to deal with this guy pretty easily. Quite lucky there for Feg that he didn't lose a warrior model. Backlash right in the middle of all of his gaunts would have been pretty brutal. Okay, CSM are going to run in and tie up one of the Termagants in melee while the Plague Champion ties up the other one. And that's going to be the end of these guys. Termagants actually killing the CSM in melee there. Crazy. I think that gave a bit of a fright to Zev there, because as soon as that model dropped, he retreated the CSM squad, but they'd have been fine. Fortunately for him, that CSM model obviously had very, very low HP compared to the others. Ravana's been doing what he could. He's caught these 2 points, and then he's built a tunnel over to here. Now he's harassing this side of the map, killing a few heretics. Bloodletters are jumping onto his ass. In theory, he could try and take the garrison, but it would be quite risky for that reason precisely. The Bloodletters can start chaining special attacks. This is going to be a dead Ravana Alpha. Yeah, he's trying to get into the garrison, but I don't think that's going to work. Now the downside of Bloodletters is they don't actually have a melee charge. They have like a shitty little passive leap into combat. And it's a problem when you're chasing down melee units. Zev actually fucks up with his teleport attempt to wipe on retreat, and he goes the wrong direction, unfortunately, so the Ravana somehow manages to get out of there. I mean, he took so long to retreat that he kind of did deserve to lose the Ravana there, but hey-ho, not this time. Feg still got him, and once again, Homogods utilising their really high speed, 6.5 speed on those little fuckers. They've got onto Zev's power farm. Now this is where the Barb Strangler Warriors are really not very helpful. Bloodletters and Beam Demons are actually immune to suppression, so... yep, the Barb Strangler just doesn't really do anything to them. Doesn't really do any damage to them because they've got too high of a HP per model. Doesn't suppress them. Just pointless. Yeah, now he's going for Adrenal Glands. I don't know why Feg purchased the Barb Strangler in the first place. The Barb Strangler is great against Aspiring Champion Heretics and CSM. But if you wanted it in Tier 1, you should have got it really earlier. Way earlier. I don't know. Whatever. Homogots need to retreat out of there. Yeah, just moving to the side so they don't have to literally retreat through the melee, which is smart. They actually get out of there with only losing one model for that. Well worth it.
Your units fulfill your command.
Heretics actually did manage to wipe out the tunnel here, which is pretty good. Eventually getting forced off of all the Gaunts and the Ravener coming out of here. No damage Synapse yet, just as I was thinking about it. Damage Synapse is now on the way. 40 power for that upgrade. Very, very expensive, but it is such a good upgrade. I mean, boosting the entire damage of your army in an army versus army fight, that's always going to be amazing. Especially when it's passive. It's literally no counterplay. Counterplay is kill the Ravener Alpha. Great. So here we go, everything's got that buff. Army versus army engagement is starting, so the Plague Champion is using a Noxious Cloud. This Noxious Cloud is brutal. Plague Champion now has the Armour of Pestilence, giving him a absolutely gigantic increase to his max HP, and also making him immune to knockback. It does reduce his speed a little bit, but man, it's so worth it for the huge amount of extra max HP he gets. Warriors did a pretty good job kiting there. Tyrant Guard's been doing some things in melee, gets a really good special attack there, knocking the Bloodletters backwards into the fire of all these ranged units. The Warriors then able to follow up with their leap into combat, knocking the Bloodletters over, so the Bloodletters do have to actually retreat out of there, losing the model themselves. Now the Termagants are going to push up with the support of the Tyrant Guard, and maybe get a bit of a gem bash going. I'd like to see some capillary towers drop down here so that the Tyrant Guard can disengage a little bit easier if it gets into a precarious situation, because as it stands right now, it's going to be a very, very long walk back to the base if the Tyrant Guard does need to get out of here. Fortunately for Feg, there's not a lot of anti-vehicle on the field. I mean, there's literally none. There's only the Bloodletters, so they will tear the Tyrant Guard to pieces quite quickly while it's in its normal mode, but if it goes into Shield Wall and gets that vehicle armor and HP regen, they probably can outdamage it, but it will take a long time. Yeah, here we go, here's the Capillary Tower. Giving them that speed buff when they're out of combat, so the fact they haven't shot means they're considered out of combat as far as this game's mechanics go, so they can disengage pretty safely. Ravener's encountering the CSM on this side, which is a bit of a questionable fight for him. He's way too low on HP right now. He does eventually get his Corrosive Devourer, which will do amazing against the CSM. 43 plasma damage. Insane. I think the Reinforced Chitin's a bit of an odd choice, to be honest. I don't know if he's opting for that because he has in mind potential Acid Splatter in the future, but the fact that he purchased the Reinforced Chitin first and then got the Corrosive Devourer, I find that very questionable. Why not just get the Regenerating Armor? It is more expensive, but it's just so much better for a ranged Ravener Alpha. Basically never have to retreat him if he's got that armor. The main thing that the Reinforced Chitin's really good for is the fact that it grants him immunity to weapon knockback. Okay, some Raveners getting dropped down, I like that play. Raveners are going to be really nice to help focus down these Bloodletters. Bloodletters are tanky when they're under worship, but at the end of the day they are only light infantry, so the counter to them is to focus fire them down. But ideally you do need to try and deal with the Heretics first. Bit of an unorthodox play there from Feg, actually spawning Rippers to send them straight into the Heretics. They don't do crazy damage, so normally they're used more to counter range units, just tying them up, but they do damage, the Rippers. You can't just ignore them. So it does work, because the Bloodletters there, they're too focused on trying to tie up all the range troops. Looks like we had a pretty beautiful Blight Grenade there. Man, you don't see Blight Grenades purchased in Tier 2 very often. But really putting some work there, probably killed at least 8 Gaunts. Spawned a couple of zombies. Bit of a miss micro here from Feg. Clearly there's a lot going on. Plague Champion now manages to kill some of these Raveners. That's a lot of bleed for Feg. Now the Plague Champion is moving over and can actually take out this Tyrant Guard, but the Tyrant Guard will be able to go into Shield Wall. I think this is a bit of a close duel actually. I think Tyrant Guard, yeah, is just going to win that. Wow. Just winning it, but now the Bloodletters are coming in under worship, healing up. Tyrant Guard finally needs to get out and do a bit of healing. So he's going to disengage. Ripper's going to move in and pull up those Bloodletters, keep them busy. Ravener has been harassing down the side here, managed to actually fully cap the natural wreck point of Zev. He does have this contested point though on the east side, which is now fully matured in his favour. Ripper's still poking at these Bloodletters, but this is a really poor use of the Rippers because the Bloodletters are under worship, they're literally healing, they're not even taking any damage, they're healing. And at this point they're just feeding red to Zev, who quite frankly has far better globals. They're also just feeding XP to the Bloodletters. Not to mention they're not free, they did cost Feg a little bit of requisition to spawn. Shouldn't be wasting them like that.
We may yet triumph today.
I mean, if we do think about this, Zev really hasn't been bleeding at all. He's lost a couple of Bloodletters here and there, he's lost a few Heretics, but compared to the sheer quantity of Gaunts that have been lost from the Tyrannid side, Ravener Brood models going down, Warrior models going down, there's just not been a lot of bleed from Zev's end, and we can see the result of that. The result of that is that he has been floating absolutely shitloads. Fucking shitloads, man. He must have had like nearly 1,000 requisition. He would have had 800 plus requisition and over 350 power prior to starting his tier 3 upgrade. Crazy. Crazy. So he is going tier 3, but so is Feg, not far behind, but Zev has a really nice stockpile of resources here. It doesn't really matter that he's getting his gen farm bashed. He at this point already has enough power for a Great Unclaimed one. Bit of a soft retreat here from the Tyrannid range troops. They need a bit of support. The Bloodletters are moving in too quickly. They're not really getting an opportunity to turn around and fire. I mean, to be fair, at this point, they could just go into the garrison. Not particularly sure why Feg didn't go into the garrison there. So now we're going to see the Bloodletters soft retreating away. Once they see the Tyrant Guard, they're going to go back to their little Heretic buddies and heal up. Plague Champion getting back onto the VP. You know, got to give it to Zev. He's been controlling the VPs pretty well, considering he's up against a Ravener Alpha and he is outnumbered in units. It's not easy to do that. It's one thing to win the fights, but it's also another thing to then keep control of the VPs as well. So the unit of choice for Zev is going to be a Great Unclean one. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I wonder if the Land Raider Phobos would have been even better, to be honest, because there is still a lot of things that can hurt the Great Unclean one. I'm just thinking of the sheer amount of plasma damage that comes out of this Corrosive Devourer. That's going to be pretty scary. The Tyrant Guard is no slouch. There is a risk of Khan effects coming out. He knows that he's only seen Tyrant Guard, Raveners, which are dropped in with their global, so they're super cheap. That's all he's seen from Feg in tier 2, so he should know that Feg's also tier 3. Yes, he's got a load of upgrades, but shit, man. Tyrant Guard and the Raveners dropped by the global, that is cheaper than the double Bloodletters. Ooh, looks like this is going to be the end of the Tyrant Guard here, though. We've got 8 Bloodletters chopping away at it. It is going to use its charge, but there's no support, there's no Synapse nearby to give it a speed boost. It seems to have made it out. It needs to get some support over there really quickly. Where are the capillary towers to boost its speed? I mean, there is one here. It's going to help a little bit. Probably is going to get out. Wow, that is quite incredible. Alright, the big man is on the field. Let's see what he can do. I mean, obviously, he is going to still be really tanky. Like, Termagants aren't going to do anything to him. Almagons don't want to come anywhere near him. They're mostly just being used for side capping anyway. Raveners aren't going to do anything because they're all piercing. This guy's super heavy infantry, so he takes basically no damage. Wow. Raveners attempted to burrow away there, but yeah. Ripped to pieces by the bloodletters whilst they do it. Pretty sad that the Raveners don't get damage resistance anymore on their burrow. I feel like that's kind of a crazy, huge nerf to them. I don't know if they really needed that. Those spawn mines have been loitering there for absolutely ages. Finally taken out by the Great Unclean One. We're going to see a Swarm Lord coming out from Feg, so it's going to be a Swarm Lord versus a Great Unclean One. But to be honest with you, I feel like I prefer Zev's position here. The only downside, oh my god, look at the damage that Corrosive Devourer is doing to the CSM. The plasma damage is just insane. But the Vomit does actually do very good anti-garrison. Oh, that is a dead Ravener Alpha. There you go. Flings him aside. Don't you dare kill my Chaos Space Marines. I don't think the Great Unclean One's that sentimental, but you know. Either way, he sees something that he can slap aside, he's gonna do it. So yeah, the composition right now for Zev, there's no anti-vehicle. That's the main problem, because the Swarmlord is vehicle armor. Unlike the Great Unclean One, who is super heavy infantry, Swarmlord is vehicle. There's no vehicle armor here, but the thing is, potential Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines and then the double Bloodletters, I feel like the supporting army that is going to help the Swarmlord is going to get fucking wrecked. Whereas the supporting army of the Nids, they just don't do a lot to the Great Unclean One, so there's not really anything that can help the Swarmlord that much. I really don't like this Ripper play. He's just charging Rippers at a Great Unclean One and they're dying just to its aura. I mean, what is the purpose of this? You're wasting Requisition spawning them, and then you're just feeding the opponent red and XP. Very odd. So the Swarmlord and the Tyrant Guard are trying to melee the Great Unclean One right now, but yeah, this is not really very effective. He's just got way too much HP. And they're both heavy melee, so they don't get any sort of like bonus damage towards the Great Unclean One. It's just not good. Okay, the Bloodletters have teleported into mid to try and get rid of this Ravener Alpha who's now running away. Now you see they try to use the Flesh Hook on the Ravener Alpha, but he's got the reinforced chitin, so you can't actually pull him in. There seems to be a Vomit as well. They're not really very effective Great Unclean One ability usage so far. Okay, a Predator's now coming out. I have to assume this will be a Chaos Predator of Tzeentch. With the las cannons, that should be able to put some serious pressure onto the Swarmlord to protect your backlines. The Ravener Alpha, though, is actually putting out some good DPS with this Great Unclean One. Plasma damage just does so much to super heavy infantry. Great Unclean One should be focusing on this Ravener Alpha. I suppose the problem is that the Ravener Alpha is faster than the Great Unclean One, so you can kind of kite him indefinitely. This is part of the reason why I didn't like the idea of the Great Unclean One. I would have preferred a Land Raider Phobos. Just park your Land Raider Phobos here, so you can shoot anything that caps the VP. You can easily rotate this side to support defending the natural VP. And the other thing with the Land Raider Phobos is it does really good anti-vehicle, so any Swarm Lords or Khan effects that come out, they would get kind of wrecked. But yeah, the Great Unclean One has been largely ineffective here, forced off eventually. I mean, it does take a long time, but it's kind of inevitable. Swarmlord is now base raping, it's just chasing the Predator around. The Guo is going to get in there and start meleeing him, I think. The Guo is actually path blocking his own Predator. Oh my god, this is terrible. The Corrosive Devourer should be able to finish off the Predator here. Has he activated the ability? I don't know, it doesn't matter. The Swarmlord gets in and gets a final poke, and now the Swarmlord has activated his leech life ability. I don't know if that's the name of it, but basically he is leeching the life off of all the nearby infantry, and it is meaning that he isn't losing any HP. It's actually kicking the shit out of this Great and Clean One at this point, because the Great and Clean One's lost way too much HP, but now the Great and Clean One is under Nurgle Worship and getting the 50% damage resistance from being in the HQ aura of his base, and getting the percentage-based heal as well. I think he is out healing the Swarm Lord here. Maybe the Swarm Lord is just out DPSing him slightly, but it's not quick enough, and he is actually he's gonna be dying. What is he doing? He needs to pull the Swarm Lord out. Has he got the red for a Tyranno formation? No, he doesn't. Oh, that is so unlucky. But the Ravener Alpha's there with that bloody Corrosive Devourer and the plasma damage again. Actually sneaks in and finishes off the Great and Clean One, and now the Swarm Lord is dipping back out. Doesn't give a shit. What an absolute badass. Oh my goodness. What a great play there with the Ravener Alpha. This Corrosive Devourer, MVP weapon for sure. And Zev throws in the towel. I mean, I guess he has to. He lost the Predator to the Swarm Lord. The Great and Clean was wiped out in his base. Somehow the Tyrant Guard didn't die, even though there were 8 Bloodletters on the field. And at some point down here, the CSM were trying to capture the points. They were constantly going down this side of the map, and they got wiped out. So I assume the Hormagaunts must have wiped them out at some point. Oh, there they are, yes. CSM were killed down here, so Zev at this point was left with basically nothing. All he had was a nuke, but how the hell is he going to be able to kill all these forces, especially with the Swarm Lord getting out and just being able to go back to the base and heal? What a crazy game. What a crazy game. I don't know what to say, that was mental. Yeah, tell me your comments down below, folks. Hope you enjoyed. Torpid out.